Ladies and gents, welcome to the show. And if I'm not mistaken, getting old, so my memory is not what it used to be. I think this is show number 5 with Rob Vigeant Jr. It is. It's show number 5. I've got the nod of approval from Rob there. 5. And Rob, I think for those people that, first of all, before we get into any of that, if you have not seen parts 1 to 4 of this series, get yourself back. I'll put the links in the description. Get yourself back. Check them out. And you'll learn a lot more about this man. I'm going to introduce him now for those of you who don't know. This is R.V.J, the legendary R.V.J, Rob Vigeant Jr. And this man is the current reigning and defending W.A.L hammer holder in the middleweight division. That's up to 205 pounds. And we've been walking through, chronologically, through this guy's career, his entry into the sport, his background prior to that, and his involvement in all things strength. Up to the present day is our intention, and we'll probably get somewhere near that today, I would think. Rob, welcome to the show, mate.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
No worries.
Lots of free time, so talking and rambling my thoughts is always a good thing.
Well, it feels familiar now, mate. You know, it's quite a warm, fuzzy atmosphere. You sat there, the pig in the background, love a bit of pig. Pig.
It's just a blessing.
Yeah, we've been with that pig for so long now, I feel kind of attached to the pig a little bit. So, mate, I think last time we spoke, you'd just been talking through your encounter in Arm Wars Vegas with Marcy Barboza. But I think we'd spoken offline a little bit about versions of you or where you believe you'd been at your best over the years. And we were speaking about 2009. And you indicated that was a time when you feel maybe we saw the best of you.
Well, yeah, I think that was a time when I started to accelerate and incline. That was the version that, you know, I felt a comfortable weight and I started getting comfortable in my body, and I had a lot of confidence in my body in angles that when I lost them, it's taken me almost 10 years to get that confidence back, because you compensate for injuries and weaknesses. And I felt in that time frame, I went into that tournament cockstrong, so to speak, too, because I could have made the 200-pound class. I won the 200-pound class the year before in 2008, and then I was about 210, maybe 215 in that range. And I went there, and I remember a guy, big heavyweight guy, and you know, everybody when they're weighing in, it's a tense tournament. These are kind of like W.A.L-esque. You know, anybody was there. The guy's looking at me. He's kind of like, you know, what are you pulling today? I said, oh, you know, supers. He's like, what'd you weigh? I said, well, I don't know, 210, 215, depending on what I ate, weighed it with my clothes on. He goes, well, why didn't you go down to 200? I said, because I don't have to. And he looked at me like, oh, really? I was like, you'll see. I said, you'll see. And oddly enough, I pulled him first round.
He was your first round.
He was my first round, yeah, and I smashed him. So, and then I ended up going with, like I said, anybody was there, and I was in the Final Four with Ron Bath, John Brzezinski, and Travis. So that's a pretty good Final Four to be in the mix in. And there, you know, left-handed, I got a win on Sean Latimer. I got a win on Don Fritchie, who's got a real weird spot if he kind of gets on that tricep. Yeah. I had a couple good wins left. I made it to the Final Four left-handed as well. But
even Sean, I mean, Sean's a massive bloke. I mean, Sean, he's got a strength pedigree. Sean's
I mean, he's
a powerlifter, really big man.
I mean, he's got a big hand. He's got a big. He comes from a good camp that understands arm wrestling. So, you know, it was a good win for me, especially where he was mowing people down. Right-handed, I had a great day, and I felt that I was as strong as anybody. But I was still not polished, and I got kind of exploited in the straps against John. I mean, no shame there. I do believe that at that event, arm strength, hand strength, I was very much on par with. That's that. I believe you commented on it. I pulled Travis for one of the placings, and he went to kind of like roll back, and I just collapsed him in my hand and pinned him. And he pulled his elbow off the table and got the restart. And you kind of called that out on one of the videos, saying that I kind of got screwed on that.
Like that was like
so
that.
That's where my hand was.
Organizations that would win, wasn't it? You know.
Yeah, but that was where my hand was and my wrist was. That I was able to just kind of like flat hand and contain, you know, Travis rolling back on me. So that was a spot that after that tournament, you know, I had life changes, had my first child, and actually, I don't know where it came from. I started dealing with anxieties, and I had a lot of anxiety issues. I didn't know what to put on. I actually thought I had heart problems, and I was going to doctors, and so because of that, I didn't even train for years, because anything that brought my heart rate up would trigger what I thought was almost going to be like a heart attack. So the more anxiety became prevalent in my life, the more it took over my life. It's almost like I'm one of those people that my mind is strong enough to do almost anything, but that works in the negative side effect. I could convince myself that a palpitation's killing me. I think I could damn near make myself croak right out.
Well, the thing is, it's such anxiety, little known thing, little understood, and obviously there's been a bit of taboo around all mental issues in the past, and thankfully they are starting to come to fruition, and people are starting to say, okay, this isn't something that you need to be ashamed of. It isn't something which should have that negative connotation, and people are starting to address it, and that's a great thing for so many men. So many people generally, but particularly I think men in strength sports, in combat sports, those alpha male types environments, it's been a real issue because they haven't wanted to talk about that. But when did that become first evident for you, mate? When were you first aware of it, and sort of how did it manifest itself?
I think it was part of, I don't know what I can tie it to. I know it started when I was living in Las Vegas, and I found myself in a situation where I got blacklisted. I had all the good jobs in Vegas. I was working at the Venetian. I was working at Planet Hollywood. And then I got into a blowout with the guy who managed Club Tao at the Venetian. And he basically blacklisted me from working anywhere in Vegas. So now I'm just like working in a ghetto at a gas station. Couldn't pay my rent. And out in Vegas, like, they don't need to give you like an eviction notice. They go and put like a lock on your door and you can't even get your stuff. My ex was like 7 months pregnant, and I'm out there getting money Western Union from my mom to even like eat and pay my rent to get my stuff. So I mean, I would wake up sometimes in the middle of the night and be like, feeling like I was suffocating, and I'd walk myself to the gas station and go get a bottle of wine just so I could sleep. Mm-hmm. And then it just got worse. The more I started thinking I got past it situationally, it was almost like I had trigger points in my body that when my heart rate would elevate, I would feel like I was croaking out. So I didn't work out because what's working out do? It elevates your heart rate. So I went through this for years. I actually have a funny story. I told a few people about the Arm Wars tournament when I went to your Arm Wars, and the real backstory on that. So I said that I pulled that match off the couch. That isn't because I'm cool and I want to have a story. Mm-hmm. I didn't work out because I was scared, but I still loved arm wrestling. And I went I went up there by myself. I flew out there, and on the plane, I'm sitting there and I start having a massive panic attack. And I'm like sitting there, my hands are boiling, sweat. I'm raining on myself. This guy looks at me and goes, now the plane's coming into Las Vegas. The plane's coming in, it's landing.
Which is a bumpy old ride anyway. Las Vegas is known because...
like, the stewardess are buckled up. Everyone's landing. We're coming in for the descent. Like, we're on the ground in 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. Everyone take your seats. So I'm sitting there freaking out. Now I got myself like, you're dead. I can't breathe. Something's in my throat. I'm choking. This guy looks at me next to me. He's like, are you okay? I said, no, I'm not. Get out of my way. He's like, what? I said, get out of my way. I get up. I go walking down the aisle. The lady's like, sir, you got to sit down. I'm like, no. I start walking to the cabin. I want to get the water out of the cooler. I'm like, I need water. I'm choking. People are throwing crackers in the air. They think I'm taking over the plane. People are screaming. They thought I was taking over the plane, and I'm walking like a zombie. And the stewardess, I'm like, I just need a cup of water. I'm choking. She gave me a couple of waters. I drink them. They send me back to the seat. People, if there was an air marshal on, I would have got shot. She's like, you need to go. So I land. I'm all jacked up. I'm in the airport now. I'm trying to drink waters. I can't get this knot out of my throat. So I finally get in the cab to go to where you guys are. And I'm in the cab. I'm like, my heart's pounding out of my chest. I'm like, how far away is the nearest hospital? He's like, oh, I don't know, 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, just so I know. He's like, do you need to go? I was like, no, I'm good. So then like 2 minutes later, I'm like, yes, bring me fast.
Jesus Christ.
Floor is there. So they bring me to this clinic, and, they were trying checking me out. It was just like wicked massive panic attacks. And, they took like a grip physically. And
was that the first one you'd had Or had you, of that magnitude? Had you had one?
That was the peak. I've had them before that, which is why I always used to roll heavy with water, because water, like, the way it would be for me was like I felt like something was literally choking me out in my throat. If you go back and watch the U.A.Ls with, like, Brent Rockers, I walked out on that stage with 2 water bottles in my pocket. That was like my blankie for, like, Linus. Linus's blankie. You know, it was my safety net, because I felt like, if you go back and watch the Arm Wars, and I told Devin Larratt this, and I was like, go back and watch. When I got off the table, I used to check my pulse all the time, because it would, like, make me feel like I was, like, going to croak right out. So when I got off the thing with Marshall, I'm like this, checking my pulse. Those first 2-3 matches, you remember during that event, I went back to the hotel?
Yes.
That's because in that environment at that time, I bugged out. I went home, paid a $40 cab ride back to the hotel and sat in the shower with the shower steaming on me like a weirdo. I had about a 4-year span where, man, I was in weirdo land, big time.
Almost like agoraphobia. You didn't want to be you didn't want to mix with people.
Things would make it kick off, and I don't know, it went away. And, you know, facing some of those things, I don't know. But there was about a 4-year span, and that brings me to, I didn't work out because of that. And it triggered it. And then, you know, I've gotten past that, but then now it's like, I got hurt at Arm Wars. So then now it's like I'm playing catch up just to try to get back to the 2009 version. So 2009, I felt like I was in a good space mentally, in a good space physically. And I feel like, you know, right-handed, I beat Don Underwood, Dave Chafee. And I feel like I was capable of, even at that weight, being a real threat in the heavyweights.
Now, you know what, I was speaking the other day to another arm wrestler who shall remain nameless for this period of time, but to cut a long story short, we'd been doing the In the Presence of Greatness show. We had on that show Travis, Devon, Engin, Michael Todd.
Yep.
And we're chatting around, just as you do before the thing starts and so on. And I'm getting messages were coming through. I'm getting messages on the phone, and one of the messages comes through, and he says, yeah, you got a habit of having overrated arm wrestlers on there, like Rob Vigeant Jr. and Michael Todd. So I made a bit of a joke of it. I was like, oh yeah, you know, and I'm reading it out to the guy. I said, look, we got this over here, and I said, I'll just make sure I've got this correct. It says, yeah, most overrated arm wrestlers of all time, Michael Todd and Rob Vigeant Jr. So I'm like, all right, and we made a joke of it. I said, like, you know, because everybody knows that everybody can beat Rob in the world, you know, just everybody. And it's sort of been like a standing joke in that respect. But the downside, or the flip side of that, is that the show finishing, we're talking about it, and everybody's saying, like, but joking aside, Rob's you know, everybody gets it. And everybody I ever speak to that's in the game gets it, you know. So the other day I'm speaking to I'm talking about people who've had experience with you, who've gripped up, who've pulled you a little bit. And I'm going to say, I've said in previous shows, I think most of the times I've ever rolled around with you at all, you've been drunk as well. So not, you know, I'm not talking hammered, I'm talking, but, you know, we're mucking about in a bar after the show or whatever.
Yep.
So it's not been like focus, but my first realization that I thought to myself, my guy's got something, was during one of those times. Prior to that, I didn't really know, you know. And it was because of that I then matched you with Marcio. I think it was at ROTM was the first time. And I thought, what I felt, and this is completely without knowing you were coming off the couch for the match or he was coming back for an arm injury. I'm going to say what I felt from you, just in the whole, can't even describe it, the setup, the presence, the movement, what you could close down, strengths and weaknesses, just made me think, him and Marcio. And I do that. That's where my mind's at, you know. I'm thinking this guy would be, so I wanted you and Marcio. I just liked it. And that's how that match came about in my mind. But the other day, this guy says to me, well, you know, Rob, and we're talking about Prudnik, and we're talking about Babayev, and we're talking about Plaman Dimitrov. And we get on to Rustam, specifically Rustam. He says, now, I can't see that Rob would do anything with Rustam. I just don't get it. I think Rustam had run through him. And I said, you see, I don't. I like that match. I think that's I don't know how that goes type moment, because where your strengths and weaknesses are. And we talked about that, and I said, I guarantee you, the first time I said, have you ever gripped Rob? No. So the first time you ever play around with Rob at all, you'll get it. Because this guy's a good arm wrestler. He knows his stuff. I said, as soon as you grip him up, you will know. So if you look at that conversation and that sort of strap line that you have around where your abilities are, where your strengths and weaknesses are, and so on, I think that most people who know you get the fact that you're sort of like, we used to have a football player, right, in the UK. It was called George Best, Irish lad, played for Manchester United, one of our biggest football teams. And George Best was the guy that, when he showed up, he'd run round 8 members of the opposing team, pull off something incredible, score a goal, and everybody had come away thinking, Jesus Christ, that's one of the best players I've ever seen in my life. Maybe the best player that I've ever seen in my life. And to this day, many people regard him as the best player they've ever seen.
Wow.
Same dude, maybe didn't show up for the match, got hammered drunk, did a few lines of coke, went out.
Living life.
Yeah, you know what I mean? That was him. I think he had a famous quote where he said, you know, like, a lot of my money I spent on like, whiskey and women. He said, and the other bit I wasted, you know, the old line. But, you sort of lent yourself through some parts of your career towards that look, you know, where everybody that was in the game wasn't sure who was showing up. Yeah. They were like, I remember when we did the U.A.L, Brent Rackers, pretty similar line. That was what he was putting across. He said, well, you know, if Rob shows up and he's absolute best, is he tough? Yeah. But what's the chance of that guy showing up? And it's funny because what you're saying now, you were always seeking that guy showing up, that 2009 focused, pure version of you, and yet you've always had these hurdles. Anxiety.
Well, Brent Rackers fell in a time too where, not because I wanted to, not because I think it's cool to say I didn't train, he was in that timeline where he was post-Marcio, so I was injured. Like I said, I was a blue-collar guy. I probably needed surgery on my shoulder, but I didn't. I worked, and I just tried to work through it. On top of that, I had the anxiety issues, and one of the things that made me realize when I started looking a little bit deeper into the anxiety was I always had the stronger arm than Brent. I could always scoop up Brent and just beat him, and I knew he wasn't going to go through my hand. So I was taking anxiety medication there. And I remember
you telling me on that day.
In the back room, I came out, if you go back and look at that video, I came out looking like a zombie, like my skin tone, my eyes were sunken. Yeah. I took, I was pulling like the rock star, like suicide. I had pills and wine in my system in a lot of doses. And, Brent Rackers, I remember he sitting back there in the back room going, oh, I like your choice of pre-workout. He's shaking up whatever goddamn concoction he's drinking. And I'm like, bro, I'm just trying to get by. I'm just trying to make it over here. So I took a couple anti-anxiety pills, and then I go out there, first match, I go to set a hook, and my arm just opens right up. No, it's not because I think Brent's hook got astronomically better than mine. I went back, and I look at Heather, I'm like, my body's not working. I was like, my body's not working. Like, I'm fucked right now. So I ended up scrapping out of that match. I had to find the right angles and lanes. But then when I went and researched, like, the medication I was taking, first 2 side effects. Loss of coordination, muscle weakness. What 2 things do you need the most in arm wrestling? The loss of coordination and muscle weakness. And I kicked the medication, started doing other things. And, you know, like I said, it's been in the back seat. But that's everything from, like, literally Marcio was off the couch. And then I got injured with Marcio. A lot of those losses I could attribute to just I didn't have the same strength. I didn't have the same angles. You know, no disrespect to guys like Alan Ford or Todd Hutchings, but they've never pulled me with a together shoulder, confident where I can engage. You know, if you take a guy like, we'll say Todd, and I have that side pressure strength that I threw Don Underwood, the stonewalled him back when Don was mowing everybody down. If you take that same strength with some hand dominance, people are like, you can't beat him. He won 4 wall hammers, and you were at 2 of them. I mean, one of my favorite things that I've said to people to just nutshell it is, as I crawl out of this hole that I've been in, you all are watching videos of a guy that doesn't exist anymore. Each week, each month that goes by, you're watching videos of a guy who lost to this guy or that guy or did this or showed his ass. Yeah, that's who I was. Let's not forget. And for all the haters out there, I'm not saying I'm Michael Jordan. But Michael Jordan did get cut from his high school basketball team. So all his high school mates can sit there and go, yeah, he was a bum. He couldn't even make the team. I went on to win the championship. But then somewhere down the line, he progressed to be far better than they ever were. I mean, they're watching videos of a person that, whether it's injury, training, my crazy cuckoo ball head, a lot of the times I'd get shit-faced drunk just to deal with my anxieties.
Mm.
So people think there's a party boy side of me, and then there was the, like, anxious, crazy side of me. And when they met, that was just like, you know, the Rolling Stones meeting up with, you know, Motley Crue and going on tour. There going to be no drugs on that bus? It's crazy meets crazy. So, for me, it just seemed to fit that time in my life, and I was just getting by day to day. But then I'm trying to put in the middle of it a passion that if you're not working out and you're not doing the right things, it's very hard to make your way. And I was fortunate enough that I stayed high enough that people didn't really believe when I told them I didn't train. The guy doesn't want to hear this in the gym 6 days a week, eating creatine and whatever else, and you kind of still come out over them, you know?
And let's be honest, none of these guys are bums. I mean, Brent Racker's an absolute athlete, and the man's strong. And then you look at Alan Ford, magnificent top roller, great pedigree, got some super impressive wins. Man can arm wrestle, you know. And Todd Hutchins, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I just don't think that they've ever pulled me physically, mentally. When I was running hot was when Todd had his hiatus. He took some years off. But I remember he was the dude. Him and Chad Silvers were like the Bash brothers in that 200-pound range. And they used to just they were like Donkey Kong punching people at tournaments. They were just going in, sweeping up events. They'd avoid each other. Todd would go up to supers. Chad was another amazing arm wrestler. And
really good.
I was coming in, and Chad's one of the guys who I was chasing. He put the brakes on me in Mohegan Sun, like 2006 when I first started. So I was always chasing that guy, and I beat him at the Rule of the Nation when Todd was on his hiatus. But after pulling me, you were there. It was like the first time you really saw me. He pulled me like 3 times. He told me he came in at his strongest and best he's ever been, and he knew where he was with Todd. They were very comparable. And he told me there on the sidelines, he goes, I'd like to see that happen. He goes, but I think you beat him right now. And then I got stronger and heavier that year in 2009. Then it just faded. Like I just stopped because of all the reasons I explained. But I've been chasing that version. And then now you find yourself, back then I had free time. I had no kids. I could be selfish. You know, I could go to the gym for an hour or two. I could go to practices. And then you find yourself, now that you have the mindset back and the body back, you know, I've explained on other shows that my body is now moving things. I'm legitimately moving things. I watch those Mazarenko channels, and I'll move weights in ways that are conducive to arm wrestling, not just to move it. And I'm doing things that maybe I've never done. And for me, it's like John Brzezinski would say that he never saw the correlation with weight training in arm wrestling for him.
Yep.
Which maybe that's his role. Me, when I'm gym strong, I'm table strong. You know, I'm very bicep heavy. You know, when my shoulder's healthy, I'll get in there and commit. But then you take a guy who's equally as accomplished, Gary Goodridge. He said when he was good in the gym, he was good on the table. So I'm more on that lane. And now I'd move weights that I might have never done. But it's hard because, like I said in another show, that now I find myself pinched for time. I'm not in that sweet spot yet where I have free time and everything. The stars haven't aligned yet, but it's definitely in a better track where I think I'm in that 2009 and beyond range. You know, I feel I'm a threat to anybody. You know, and my hand is so strong right now.
And the other thing, obviously, to note there was that you said you'd never really had anyone who's trained you. I'm talking about another elite puller who's thought, you know what, I'm going to help this guy mold him into something. And you spoke about your desire for Engin to do something like that, or he was certainly a guy that you had massive respect for and would be interested in what he could show you, which I get entirely. But it's funny, you were, in fact, you know what? I saw a video the other day. When was it? Last week, back end of last week. It's prominent, and put a date line on this. It is May the 1st today. Okay, so the 1st of May, and it's just gone out from World Armwrestling League, and it was a match, maybe like 15 or 16 tournament format, probably 15 Vegas tournament format, yourself and Todd. and I want to say it was not the finals, it was in the knockout round.
That was to go to the finals on the A side.
Okay.
That was the match that we both went like this. That was to be A side final.
Now that was a similar story, I think, to often when I saw you and Todd match up. You would have dominance in the hand, so that flat pressure, jump onto him, he would bail underneath you for the strap, because Todd obviously gravitated toward the strap so he could get a bite on you and drive hard to the side. And it was always that yin and yang, you know, equal and opposite.
Yeah, that was actually my third match in a row, consecutively meeting him 3 times in a row. That was 3 wins in a row. So at different events. So we met 3 times prior to that, and I won those 3 in a row. Was
it always in that situation, mate? Were the sort of circumstances of the match really similar? You'd take the hand and drive.
The first 2 were a little bit. I tried to roll back, and then I had to come forward. But in Vegas, I started feeling that if I matched him sideways, if I could neutralize that side drive and keep him off of getting that lane, keep him off of that wedge that he likes to get with his elbow a little bit. Because my side pressure is actually, as my shoulder healing, my side pressure is really, really, really powerful. And I mean, I believe it's a lot more powerful than people think, because they look at old videos where I was loose and sloppy in here. But that's what injury does to people. I believe that, you know, that was like basically a proof of concept for me that I could match him. If you watch, I didn't go backwards at all in that match. I literally stood there and just kind of pushed with him. And then when his hand started to break, he went to bail under, and I was just already up and tall. And I think if they ran that tournament when my adrenaline was like on, like I had like pressure relief valves and adrenaline bursting out my ears, I think if they ran that without taking a 4-hour break, I don't think anybody was beating me within that hour time frame. My adrenaline and that like weirdo, you know, Bruce Banner, the Hulk moment that I get when I do a win that nobody tells me I can do, it would have changed the outcome. But I do recognize that he's a good strap puller, and that was a hole in my game. But even still, that was in a time when you had to earn the strap.
I mean, he's not only a good strap puller. I mean, he's a good everything puller. That dude is rock. And he's really smart as well. I know yourself and Todd are actually probably done each other good. I was talking to Travis the other day, and we were talking about the way in which arm wrestlers can affect each other. And you need that guy, that nemesis, you know. You need that person who's, even if you believe somewhere inside yourself that you're the man, if they do too, and the results go either way, it makes for that fascinating up and down effect, you know. And I think it's actually a valuable thing to have in your career, to have that guy that pushes you, that'll make you knock out that one last rep, or that set when it's raining and you don't want to go outside and your wife's upstairs in bed. You know what I mean? You're thinking, yeah, I got to do it. Whatever it is, that motivational factor. And I think Todd, you've played that role.
He's absolutely a guy that's made me focus a little bit more.
Well, let's be honest, in the last few years,
unfocused.
No, and if it's not, like we talk about North America's best middleweight, you know, people were saying the other day, oh, if it's not you, it's him. If it's not him, it's you. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, the major consensus is basically he won all the wall hammers, and I'm an interim champion. But I can at least say that 2 of the hammers he won, I wasn't at. And the big regionals for placings, you know, within wall tournaments, I still got 3 pins. But that's the way it is, you know. You mentioned Rustum. People always say you can't until you do. You know, I will say a guy like who had the most recent experience with Rustum, pulled him about 12 times, Tim Bresden. When he's trained with me not long back, he seems to think that I definitely can win that match. And he gripped up with Rustum about 15 times. He thought I'd go over there and win top 8.
I'm going to go on record as saying I definitely love that. I don't think for 1 minute that you are outgunned with Rustam Babayev. No. I think stylistically he has a lot of things that you may be able to capitalise upon.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting match, and that's something at some point that we will have to get onto, because there's been so many matches talked about. But right now, I want to focus on the coming up to the here and now, the present. Obviously, we know that in the World Arm Wrestling League, you have been a dominant force in the middleweight division in the absence of Todd Hutchins. And throughout that period of time, there's been the chat, And even before that, there was the chat. But I want to understand, and I want people to know, you and Todd, right? How'd that come about? How did the ill feeling come about? Or that, is it real? Or is that something that's created by other people chiming in on a situation that you've allowed to get into your head and he's allowed to get into his head a little bit? Because you're both alphas. You're both top dogs. And it's hard to swallow back on that and say, no, maybe this guy deserves credit. And yet, when you get you both on your own and you're talking to you in that kind of environment, both of you are very, very ready to admit that the other one's a bad man.
Yeah, I think it started off real. And where it started, I think it's when Todd was probably in a position like I'm in now, and I was in a position, we'll say, like Ryan Bowen or Mulvihill, like a guy really climbing to get to the top. But I had a very fast ascent. I basically came in the sport when only 2 or 3 guys in my class could beat me, everywhere. Like Chad Silver's got one on me, but it was tit for tat. It was close. Mm-hmm. James Smith could beat me, but he was right up there with those guys like Chad and Todd. Never pulled Todd Hutchins. And I remember as I started getting better, I was that guy. Todd was universally seen as the best guy. And this was the Northeast board was big. And I think Travis at one of the NAL events wanted to put together a 4-way with, I believe, James Smith, or was it Sylvain? It might have been Sylvain, Todd Hutchins, James Smith, and myself. Anyways, I knew that Todd probably wanted me first. He saw me the weakest. So he just started playing mindfuck games and bashing me all over online, calling me the Wobbly Gazelle and the Serengeti, and everybody was calling me the Wobbly. And, he was trying to get me to snap out and request him first round so we could prove it, and which worked, because I'm a person that will get poked at enough, and whether someone's trolling me or not, I'll bite and call it for what it is. And it never kicked off. But he did do a period of online trolling, bashing, hazing. So I hated the fucking guy. I wanted to punch his face for a long time. And I never actually met him until we met at the U.A.L. and it was all gone. I'm older. It's internet shit. Got over it. But then there's just been through the competitive, there's always been things like lying. Because then after that, I probably turned on a little bit of the anger and, it's almost like the bully becoming the bully.
Mm-hmm.
I got so, I don't know, the results in time that we would just go back and forth. And, sometimes things get misunderstood when you're always being things thrown in your face about how you're inadequate to somebody when you're I beat them. You feel like you have to defend yourself, and in defense of yourself, you end up bashing someone. Nowadays, in 2020, do I have ill feelings? Nah, man, I'm so over it. And I sent him when I wasn't going out in 2017, I actually sent him a text saying, I believed I was going to win 2017 because I knew where I was in 2016 when I got wins. But I said to him, I was like, I'm not going. I'm not going to go to this riff-raff tournament when the W.A.L kind of fizzled off and they had some tournament. I said, I'm not going to make it. I canceled my trip. I'm guessing you're going to win. And this looks like it's the last World tournament. Congratulations on being undefeated all this time. And, through time, we've had periods of texting and talking. And, he's even told me tips about side pressure and what muscles are involved. And we've had moments of talking. I do think that always chasing each other, it's hard to be on a cool level. And
yeah,
he probably hears about me, but not as much as I hear about him. It can create a bitterness even hearing the person's name when it's really not the person themselves. Yep. You're kind of like, God damn, I'm so tired of hearing about Todd Hutchins. It makes you hate the guy when it's really not even him. It's all the other people chirping for him. So, I'm going to be 40 this year. I got no problem, man. I've told the guy at the end of W.A.L events that he looks amazing, that he looks strong. Congratulations. Would I like to pull him? That's the nature of the beast. But I respect the fact that he's gone his own path. And, we're talking things that are years old. It is what it is. It's ancient history.
How good is Todd Hutchins, Rob?
What?
How good is Todd Hutchins?
Oh man, I mean, how good is he? I think that's universally known. I think he's great. He goes down as one of the greats. He could quit today. He goes down as one of the greats. He's proved himself. I love that Todd Hutchins is so proven, because just competing with him puts you on the checkbox with all the events he's won. It's like Highlander, right? If somebody goes all over Russia and Bulgaria and slaps everyone up without even really having a hard time, and you can at least make the dude sweat. You can make him work. You can score a win. That's something that those guys over there can't do. So when people throw in my face, you've never been to Russia. Well, I don't need to go to Russia. I've beaten guys who whip everyone's ass in Russia. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily I understand styles, but it does prove that you're of that level. And I mean, he's won everything. I followed Todd Hutchins, and I know everything he's won, and he's won just about everything. So I mean, he's legendary status. Everyone wants to throw legend out there. It's a loose term, but he's a legend, no doubt about it. No, he's the guy that I chased from when I started, and I've continued to chase. And I'd be lying to you if I told you that when I'm working out, I don't dedicate a portion of my lanes and angles and things that I'm tightening up based on my encounters with him. Mm. Still. And we haven't pulled in 40 years. We haven't even gripped up. But I think about it. But he is that good. I don't chase, the moon. I'm chasing the stars. And he's among them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to know that, where you sat on that, because whenever I've dealt with you on every occasion, you've always been very real in terms of your feedback, really considered in everything you say. I've never known you somebody who goes off on one who's rash and makes a silly claim. You've always got, rationale. Your justification's always pretty solid in terms of what you know. And I don't think anybody can deny that Todd has, like you say, he's achieved things which are truly upper tier. I mean, elite. He's right there. Now, when you look at the direction that he's taken and going forward, a lot of people have said, "Oh, well, it's a match that's got to happen." I've got my own opinions of that, but I'm keen to hear yours. Do you feel like, in your mind, is it a match that's got to happen for you? Is it, or is it not really? Because I figure you've got a lot of people who can pull them, so is he, you know what I mean? So
yeah, I'm getting accepting of the fact that he's got his path and his lane. This is kind of like when I was rolling good, when I felt really strong, I was chasing John. I wanted to pull John. I wanted to pull him everywhere. And him retiring is like, what am I going to do? Knock down his door and be like, let's go. A guy retired. He did his 30, 40 years and he's out, and it's like, I never got that real confirmation or redemption. That's just the way it goes sometimes. He's on a different path and he's doing good. And if it wasn't for the world of the internet, I wouldn't be nearly salivating over Todd Hutchins. It's almost like the validation you seek.
Yep.
Todd, I'd like to pull him. But then again, there are guys that got wins that throw it in my face. Like Tom Nelson throws a win in my face from 10 years ago. I'm not staying up at night thinking about Tom, but, it's more or less because I hear Todd's name the most.
Yeah.
But I know he's on a path. Is it a match that has to happen? I think it will get a lot of hype, a lot of publicity. I think a lot of people have opinions that he'll just run me over. Again, I have my own opinions on the match, but I can respect. We're kind of in similar sports, but different positions. You know what I mean? It's like comparing a fullback to a quarterback. They have different kind of roles, and he's going his way, chasing his thing, and I'm going my way. And if inevitably we cross over and collide, then I'm 50-50. I'd love it to happen, and I'm also okay if it doesn't. It's been 4 years in the making. I mean, a couple of years ago when they canceled Vegas, I was crushed. I was destroyed. But now, again, it's like when you stop seeking validation, you can live a more peaceful life.
So now we bring yourself up to the present day, mate, and you're sat here, you're 2 years defending W.A.L champion. And you look at the chasing pack and you look at the crop of talent coming up, and you've pretty much, it's fair to say, correct me if I'm wrong, you've cleaned out the division, really. There are people out there who have claimed the right at a shot. The one with the most legitimacy there would probably be, for me, one of two people. It would either be Paul Lynn, or probably, if you're looking at one-on-one matches, if it's not him, it's Frode Hågeland. Mm-hmm. Those are the only two guys that on a standalone one-on-one match have got a resume that affords that. So, you know, and just to be clear on that, why I've thrown Frode in there is because I know he lost in his last Battleground match, but to be fair, he'd had a battle with where he certainly was doing some crowd entertaining. If you watch that match back, he's allowing Q to jump all over him in positions, comes back, wins that match, gives fits to Michael Ciliaris, who'd come through clean as a whistle. So Michael came in very clean into that final, and I love Mike. I'm not doing Mike down. He's great at what he does, but if they were going in a one-on-one fresh match, I've got Frode all day, every day.
Yeah, I actually think, and Mike's another guy that I chased from the beginning, and we kind of had a bitter start because of our sports aggressive. You know, mm-hmm. I see guys that don't get aggressive. I don't know. You're trying to physically break another man. Yep. You're trying to physically take someone's body and move it in a way they don't want it to be. Mm-hmm. So there's a natural aggression, at least from my side. And, you know, a lot of respect for Mike. He's a guy I chased and watched a lot of. I think that in that four-way, Nicholas got juiced. I think that the setup that they let go, and Bart doesn't even hang out with people up to the W.A.L. I hang out with Bart. I love Bart. I consider him a friend. He's one of the guys I seek out to hang out with. And I don't even want to see what I would come across like as a ref if I actually had to ref. That being said, some of the starts that Mike got away with, Nicholas was really, he couldn't win that match unless he was Dave Chafee.
Yeah, no comment, but let's just say I'm not in disagreement with some of those things. I don't necessarily leave it at Bart's door.
About Frode, yes. Frode seems to get a pedigree of winning super matches. Yeah. I mean, through Arm Wars, he's probably got about 20 Arm Wars matches, and he's beat some really high-level guys. And Paul Lynn is undeniable what he's doing in the backing he has. I think people see him as that next guy. Where are any of these people in reality in respect to myself? I know everyone's getting better. I think I'm getting better. People see me as a 15-year veteran, but for reasons I've explained, I'm really just like, I feel like I'm in that first 3-year climb again. So where am I? I don't know. You got to remember, I haven't even pulled since September. Mm-hmm. So, if you looked at the roster, mate, who would you like to pull the most out of the crop of guys that are coming up, and who do you feel is most deserving? It'd be hard to say because I've pulled everybody. A lot of people say Storm, but I pulled Storm, which is crazy because I know times changed 2 years ago, right? But Paul's the guy that everyone's curious about, and deserving, not deserving, I think he's a guy that's doing a lot. He's got a big presence. He's now got a media presence. He basically wins everything he does. He's got a lot of endorsements. What's it mean? But I think that for the tournaments he's been winning and what he's been doing and kind of like the surrounding hype around him, I do think that pretty universal people think he's the next one in line. At least he's 1-0. It'd be cool to see him face like the winner of Bowen and BLM, or get a couple more under the belt. I mean, by the time this all kicks off, I mean, by the time we get back to normalcy, I may be retired. Who knows? I mean, I don't know. I kind of I recognize the fact that I can be like Sybil. I got different personalities. One day I'll be all like, in the morning I'll be all jolly and gung ho. Then by the afternoon, I'm like, I'm over it. Forget it. Quit. You know, so you never know who you're going to get.
Times are changing for sure, mate. But whoever comes up next, we know it's going to be a hot ticket. A lot of people very keen to see that match. Ladies and gents, we're going to wrap up this last edition, show number 5, with Rob Vigeant Jr. Rob, thanks very much for your time. And thanks for coming on the show. Guys, for those of you just are coming to the show, checking it out for the first time, if you like what we do, there's plenty more. Go to the channel, check it out, the Deep Inside series with these guys. We will be back with another episode with Rob Vigeant Jr. very soon. Until that time, guys, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. let everybody know about it. And on a personal note, hope you and your families remain safe. Still crazy times, deaths all over the world from this thing. Hopefully it calms down, they'll let us out soon and we can get back to arm wrestling. But until then, ladies and gents, take it easy, peeps.